Imagine this. You are standing ankle-deep in mud soaked black with blood. The air stinks of iron, sweat, and rot. Your shield is splintered. Your spear is gone. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely grip your sword. And in front of you, stretching all the way to the horizon, is the greatest army the world has ever seen. Persia. The same empire that butchered the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae. The same empire that burned Athens to ash. The same empire that swore an oath, Greece will be erased. Now here is the impossible question. How does a shattered, starving coalition of Greek city-states, torn by hatred, betrayal, and fear, somehow break Persia's spine, and make the killers of the 300 bleed? Stay with me. Because what happens next is not heroic fantasy. It's uglier. It's darker. And it's far more brutal than the legend ever told you. You think Thermopylae was the end of Sparta's story? No. It was the beginning of Persia's nightmare. And before this ends, you're going to watch the greatest land army in history collapse into screaming chaos, because of one decision no one believed would work. But first, 5 moments you are absolutely not ready for. 1. A Spartan commander who deliberately lets his own men starve, nearly mutinying his army on purpose. 2. A Persian cavalry charge so violent it snaps spines through bronze and leaves the ground slick with crushed organs. 3. A night of terror where tens of thousands of soldiers panic in the dark, stabbing shadows, and each other. 4. The single forgotten Spartan trick that turns Persian numbers into a death sentence. And 5. This one matters. What happens after the battle, when the Greeks do something so savage that even ancient historians struggle to justify it? But to understand Plataea, to understand why Persia had to pay in blood for the 300, you have to feel the despair first. So let's go back. Back to a Greece that is already broken. Thermopylae is over. Leonidas is dead. 300 Spartans lie piled beneath Persian arrows and spears, their bodies stripped, mutilated, left to rot as a warning. And that warning works. Because panic spreads faster than any army. Across Greece, cities argue, accuse, betray. Athens has been evacuated. Its temples are burning. The Acropolis is rubble. Persian fires light the night sky, and refugees choke the roads, dragging children, carrying bones of ancestors, sobbing prayers to gods who did not answer. You are a Greek farmer watching smoke rise from the horizon. You don't ask if Persia will come. You ask when. Xerxes, great king of kings, believes the war is already won. And why wouldn't he? His empire stretches from India to Egypt. His army drinks rivers dry. His fleet blocks the sea. He has gold, food, cavalry, archers, immortals. Greece has stubbornness. And even that is cracking. Sparta hesitates. Corinth plots. Thebes openly sides with Persia. And here's the worst part. Even Sparta, the state built on war, has just lost its king and its myth of invincibility. The 300 did not stop Persia. They only slowed it. Now Persia wants revenge. Not quick death. Public annihilation. Xerxes leaves Greece temporarily, satisfied that terror will finish the job. But he leaves behind his cousin and general, Mardonius. And Mardonius is different. He is younger, sharper, more dangerous. He doesn't just want to crush Greece. He wants to break it psychologically. So he camps his army in Boeotia, near the small town of Plataea. Flat land. Perfect for cavalry. Perfect for Persian tactics. And he waits. Because he knows something terrifying. The Greeks must eventually come to him. They can't hide forever. Now imagine being a Spartan officer at this moment. Your king is dead. Your reputation is bleeding out. Your enemies whisper that Sparta's age is over. And if Greece falls, Sparta dies with it. This is where our first human story begins. Pausanias. He is not a king. He is not a legend. He is Leonidas' cousin, and his replacement. And he is carrying a weight that would crush most men. Because every Spartan knows the whispers. Leonidas died gloriously. Pausanias must redeem us. No pressure. Pausanias grew up in Sparta's Agoge like all Spartan males, beaten, starved, trained to kill. But he was never supposed to lead all of Greece. Now he stands at the head of a coalition army that barely trusts him. Spartans, Athenians,
Corinthians,
Megarians, Tegeans, men who hate each other almost as much as they fear Persia. And Pausanias knows something they don't. If this battle is fought wrong, Greece ends forever. So the Greek army marches north, tens of thousands strong. And when they finally see the Persian camp near Plataea, the scale is horrifying. Persian tents cover the plain like a second city. Cavalry patrol endlessly. Archers drill by the thousands. This is not Thermopylae's narrow choke point. This is open land. The one place Spartans never want to fight Persia. And Mardonius smiles. Because this is exactly where he wants them. Now here's where most histories rush. But stop. Because this is where despair sets in. Days pass. Then weeks. No battle. The Persians harass Greek supply lines. Their cavalry cuts down foragers, tramples pack animals, poisons springs. Imagine thirst so bad your tongue cracks. Imagine watching comrades die not from wounds, but dehydration. Greek morale plummets. Arguments explode. Athenians accuse Spartans of cowardice. Spartans accuse Athenians of recklessness. And Pausanias does something that seems insane. He refuses to attack. He refuses to retreat. He does nothing. And the men begin to whisper. He's afraid. He's dictionarying Leonidas. He's going to get us all killed. You think it can't get worse? Wait. One night, Persian cavalry under commander named Mecistius charges Greek positions. Mecistius is a giant of a man, riding a massive horse, armored head to toe. The cavalry slams into Greek lines like a thunderclap. Horses scream. Men are crushed. Spears snap. And here, hope flickers. Mecistius is struck. He falls. The Persian cavalry panics and retreats. When the Greeks strip his body, they realize who he was. A Persian hero. Beloved. Feared. And when the Persians see his corpse, they wail. They howl. They mutilate their own bodies in grief. It is a small victory, but it tells Pausanias something crucial. Persians can bleed, but the Greeks still won't attack. Because Pausanias is waiting for something invisible. Something ancient. Something ritual. The gods. Before battle, Greeks consult omens, sacrifices, signs. And every sacrifice says the same thing. If you attack first, you die. Imagine the psychological torture. You are starving. You are surrounded. Your enemy taunts you daily. And your God says, don't move. This is Act 2's darkness. Pausanias is trapped between military logic and divine law. Attack, and be cursed. Wait, and be destroyed. He is human. He cracks. At night, alone, he prays, begs, bargains. And Mardonius senses weakness. So he sends messengers. Offers peace. Offers wealth. Offers autonomy, for Athens, if they betray the alliance. This is our second human story. An Athenian named Aristides hears the offer. He is tired. He has lost his city. His people are refugees. And Persia is offering survival. Think about that. How many would say yes? Aristides refuses. He sends the message straight to Pausanias. And with it, unity hardens. Athens will not betray Greece. That decision matters. Because now Mardonius abandons diplomacy. He chooses annihilation. Persian cavalry attacks intensify. Greek water sources are destroyed. Food is nearly gone. And finally, mutiny whispers become shouts. The Greek generals demand withdrawal. And Pausanias agrees. A night march. Quiet. Controlled. Or so they think. This is where everything nearly collapses. Under darkness, orders are misunderstood. Units move at different times. Formations break. The army fragments. At dawn, the Greeks are scattered, separated, exposed. Mardonius sees it. And he laughs. Because now he attacks. Dawn breaks over Plataea like a bad omen. A pale, sickly light crawls across the plain, and reveals the truth. The Greek army is no longer an army. It's fragments. Units scattered across hills. Shields stacked without men. Men standing without shields. The night withdrawal, meant to save them, has torn the coalition apart. And across the field, Persian horns begin to scream. Low. Deep. Relentless. Mardonius sees exactly what he has been waiting for. Disorder. He does not hesitate. Persian cavalry surges forward, hooves hammering the earth so hard the ground trembles beneath your feet. Dust rises in choking clouds. Arrows streak the sky like black rain. You are a Greek hoplite in this moment. Your mouth is dry. Your stomach is hollow. Your armor feels twice as heavy as it did yesterday. And you realize, too late, that this is not a battle. This is an execution. Persian cavalry slams into isolated Greek units, riding them down, trampling men into the dirt, crushing ribs, snapping necks beneath iron-shod hooves. Archers fire point-blank, arrows punching through exposed throats and eyes. Men run. Some throw down shields, an unthinkable shame, just to move faster. Others freeze, paralyzed, watching death sprint toward them. This is the lowest point. This is where history almost ends. And Pausanias sees it all unravel. The Spartans, his Spartans, are still together. Barely. They're holding formation on higher ground near a sanctuary of Demeter. But the Athenians are separated. Other contingents are in chaos. And worst of all, the Persians are advancing in full force. Mardonius himself rides with them, armored in gleaming bronze, mounted on a white horse, surrounded by his elite guard. He believes, honestly believes, that in the next few hours, Greece will be finished. He is wrong. But not yet. First, you must feel how close it came. Persian cavalry rides straight up to the Spartan line, showering them with arrows. The Spartans lock shields, arrows thudding into bronze and wood, vibrating through arms and bones. They do not break. But they do not advance either. Because Pausanias is still waiting. Still praying. Still sacrificing. Imagine the torture of that moment. Men dying all around you. Your allies screaming for help. And your commander refuses to move because the entrails of a slaughtered goat say wait. Spartan officers beg him. Command us. Pausanias kills another animal. Bad omen. Another. Bad omen. The Spartans are being shot to pieces. This is where the legend almost fails. And this is where our third human story begins. A Spartan named Momphoretus. A hardened veteran. A man raised to despise retreat more than death. He hears that Pausanias plans to pull back further, to regroup. And he loses control. He grabs a massive stone and hurls it at Pausanias' feet. This, he shouts, voice cracking with fury, is my vote against retreat. Imagine the tension. Spartan officers staring at each other. Persian arrows falling like rain. A mutiny, right there, on the edge of annihilation. Pausanias does not kill him. He does not arrest him. He waits. And then, finally, the omens change. Good signs. The gods, at last, give permission. Pausanias raises his spear. And the Spartans move. Not charging. Not screaming. They advance in silence. Bronze against bronze. Shield wall tightening with every step. This is where the Battle of Plataea truly begins. The Persians surge forward to meet them, confident, screaming, arrows flying. And then, the two worlds collide. The impact is not cinematic. It is brutal. Shields slam together with a sound like thunder. Spears drive forward, punching through wicker shields, through linen armor, through flesh. You hear bones snap. You hear men choking on blood. Persian infantry is brave, but lightly armored. Their shields are thin. Their spears shorter. And they are suddenly face to face with the nightmare of Greece. The Spartan phalanx. This is the trick Persia never solved. Numbers mean nothing when men cannot push through the wall. The Spartans lean in, shoulder to shoulder, shield rims locked, legs braced, driving forward like a living machine. Persian spears glance off bronze cuirasses. Greek spears punch deep, through ribs, through bellies, through throats. Men die standing up. Mardonius watches, and realizes something is wrong. The Spartans are not breaking. They are advancing. Slowly. Relentlessly. He orders his elite infantry forward. Persians rush the line, grabbing spears with bare hands, trying to pull shields apart, hacking at faces with axes and swords. And for a moment, just a moment, it looks like they might succeed. The fighting becomes so close that spears are useless. Men drop them. Swords come out. Short blades. Up close. Personal. This is not war as strategy. This is slaughter as labor. Spartans punch with shield rims, shattering teeth, crushing noses. They stab upward, under armor, into armpits and groins. The mud becomes slick with blood. You slip on intestines. You choke on dust and screams. This is where Persian courage breaks. Because bravery without protection is suicide. And then, fate intervenes. Mardonius rides closer to rally his men. Closer. Too close. A Spartan, or possibly a Tegean, hurls a spear. It strikes Mardonius in the chest. He falls from his horse. The great king's cousin hits the ground hard. And Persia's heart stops beating. Because this is not just a general. This is the symbol of Persian authority in Greece. The Persians scream. They surge forward to protect his body. And in that chaos, the Spartan line surges. This is the false ending. It feels like victory. The Persians begin to fall back. Men shout. Some cheer. But this is where Plataea reveals its cruelty. Because the battle is not over. Not even close. While the Spartans butcher Persian infantry, the Athenians are fighting for their lives elsewhere. The Thebans, Greek traitors allied with Persia, slam into them. And this fight is different. Greek against Greek. Shield against shield. Brothers killing brothers. The Athenians fight with desperation fueled by rage and betrayal. They push. They stab. They bleed. And slowly, they begin to win. The Thebans break. They flee. But the battlefield is now chaos. Persians retreat toward their fortified camp, a massive wooden stockade. And here's where most stories end. But what happens next is worse. The Persians reach the camp and barricade themselves inside. Tens of thousands of them. Arrows rain down from the walls. Greeks assault the fortifications. And fail. Again. And again. Men die in piles at the walls. This is the second false ending. Victory seems impossible again. Until someone remembers something old. Something brutal. Something Spartan. Axes. Tools. The Greeks tear apart the wooden defenses. They rip openings in the walls. And when the first Spartans breach the camp, what follows is not battle. It is revenge. Inside the Persian camp, there is nowhere to run. No formation. No cavalry. Just panic. Spartans pour in, screaming now, stabbing, hacking, crushing skulls. Athenians follow. Tegeans. Men who have lost brothers, sons, fathers. Men who remember Thermopylae. They kill until their arms go numb. Persians beg. They are ignored. Bodies pile so high men climb over corpses to keep killing. Herodotus would later say only a fraction escaped. Tens of thousands die inside that camp. This is the moment Persia bleeds for the 300. But stay with me. Because the aftermath is darker still. When the killing stops, the Greeks walk through the carnage. Gold everywhere. Weapons. Armor. Luxury beyond imagination. And then they find the bodies. Persians stripped. Mutilated. Some killed long after the battle ended. And Pausanias orders something chilling. He orders the body of Mardonius displayed, mocked, treated with contempt. A message. Not to Persia, but to history. Sparta remembers. This is not noble. This is human. And before this ends, there's one final truth you need to hear. Because Plataea didn't just end an invasion. It reshaped the Greek soul. And planted the seeds of future wars. Wars between Greeks. Wars that would destroy Sparta itself. You think this is a victory story? Wait for the cost. You think the worst is over. You think the slaughter inside the Persian camp is the end. That's the lie history wants you to believe. Because the Battle of Plataea is not just about how Persia lost. It's about why Persia lost. And the answer isn't numbers. It isn't bravery. It isn't even the Spartan shield wall. It's a decision so subtle, so counterintuitive, that most ancient writers barely understood it themselves. A decision that weaponized patience. A decision that turned Persian strength into a liability. And to understand it, you need to rewind, just a little, back to the days before the battle exploded. Because while the Greeks appeared disorganized, starving, on the brink of collapse, they were doing something radical. Something no imperial army had ever faced before. They were refusing to play Persia's game. Mardonius expected aggression. That's how Persia won wars. Force the enemy to move. Exploit their impatience. Destroy them with cavalry and arrows in open terrain. That doctrine had crushed nations for generations. And at Plataea, it almost worked. But Pausanias understood something most generals never do. He understood behavior. Fear. Ego. Expectation. He understood that Persia's greatest strength, its confidence, could be turned into recklessness. So he let the Greeks suffer. He let morale rot. He let the Persians believe the Greeks were weak. Imagine how unnatural that is for a Spartan commander. Sparta's entire culture is built on action. On decisiveness. On attacking. And Pausanias does the opposite. He waits. He absorbs pressure. He forces Persia to escalate. And Persia does exactly what he wants. They commit. Fully. Irreversibly. When Mardonius orders his infantry forward to crush what he believes is a broken enemy, he makes the fatal mistake. He abandons flexibility. Persian infantry advances without cavalry support. Without space to maneuver. Straight into the teeth of the hoplite phalanx. This is the miracle twist. The forgotten trick. The thing textbooks gloss over. Persia lost because it fought like Greece, on Greek terms, at the worst possible moment. And now you need to understand why that mattered. Persian infantry is brave. Disciplined. Loyal. But they are built for speed and missile warfare. Light armor. Wicker shields. Short spears. Perfect for harassment. Suicidal in a shove match. Greek hoplites, by contrast, are walking fortresses. Bronze helmets that narrow vision but eliminate fear. Heavy shields that overlap into an unbreakable wall. Long spears designed to kill before the enemy can reach you. And most importantly, they fight as one body. The phalanx is not about individual heroism. It is about trust. You protect the man to your left. He protects you. Break that trust, and everyone dies. Persians don't fight that way. They can't. So when Mardonius commits his infantry head-on, he doesn't just lose men. He loses cohesion. You see it in the accounts. Persians rushing forward in waves. Trying to break through by sheer courage. Grabbing spears with bare hands. Hacking at shields with swords that glance off bronze. And dying. Over and over again. But here's what makes Plataea truly horrifying. The Spartans don't just kill. They advance. Every step forward compresses Persian ranks. The rear pushes the front. Men can't retreat. They can't maneuver. They can barely breathe. And when men panic in dense formations, they kill each other. Men trip over corpses. Fall. Are trampled. The phalanx doesn't need to slaughter everyone. It just needs to keep moving. And Persia collapses from within. This is the psychological kill. The moment when an army realizes, we cannot win this. But don't romanticize it. This is not clean. This is not noble. This is men screaming until their voices tear apart. This is blood-filling sandals. This is arms growing so tired they can barely lift blades anymore. This is where even Spartans begin to feel something dangerous. Rage. And that rage doesn't stop when the battle is decided. It follows them into the Persian camp. And once inside, the rules disappear. This is the third human story. A Persian soldier named Artabasos. Unlike Mardonius, he sees the danger early. He commands a large Persian force, tens of thousands. And he watches the battle turn. He sees Mardonius fall. He sees the infantry buckle. And he does something extraordinary. He orders a retreat. Not to the camp. Not to fight to the death. He marches his men away from Plataea. All the way back toward Asia. And because of that decision, his force survives. Most of Persia's army does not. Think about that. The difference between survival and annihilation was not strength. It was restraint. Artabasos disobeyed Persian expectations. Mardonius followed them. And only one lived to tell the story. This matters. Because it reveals the deeper truth. Plataea wasn't won by Spartans alone. It was won by commanders who understood when not to fight. That is the lesson history hides. And now we reach the aftermath. The part almost no one wants to talk about. Because victory doesn't make Greeks noble. It makes them dangerous. The Persian camp is looted. Gold spills everywhere. Armor ripped from corpses. Bodies stripped naked. The dead are no longer enemies. They are resources. And here is the darkest moment. The Greeks debate what to do with Persian prisoners. These are not warriors. These are wounded men. Servants. Camp followers. The decision? They are killed. Quietly. Systematically. Because Greece has learned something terrifying. Mercy creates enemies. And they will not allow Persia to rise again. Pausanias orders a monument built. A victory offering to the gods. But even this act is poisoned. Cities argue over whose name should appear first. Who deserves the glory? Who bled more? You can feel the future cracking open. Because the unity that saved Greece is already dying. And this is where we confront the price. Plataea ends Persian invasion. But it also ends something else. The illusion of Greek unity. Sparta emerges dominant. Athens emerges emboldened. And both will soon turn their weapons on each other. The blood at Plataea does not end war. It teaches Greeks how to kill Greeks better. That is the hidden legacy. And Sparta is changed. Because revenge is intoxicating. They made Persia bleed. But they also learned they could be brutal beyond legend. And once a society internalizes that, it doesn't stop. It escalates. The killing is over. The screaming has faded. And now, the silence feels wrong. You walk through the Persian camp after Plataea, and it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like a mass grave that hasn't realized it's dead yet. Bodies everywhere. Men twisted into shapes the human spine was never meant to take. Faces frozen in terror, mouths open, eyes glassy and staring at nothing. Blood soaked into rugs once woven for kings. Gold scattered in the dirt like it's suddenly lost all meaning. This is what beating an empire looks like up close. And here's the first truth history doesn't like to say out loud. The Greeks are shaken by what they've done. Not ashamed. Shaken. Because this wasn't a clean triumph. This wasn't a heroic stand like Thermopylae. This was annihilation. And annihilation changes people. Pausanias walks the field. He is victorious. He is famous. And he is already becoming dangerous. Because power, once tasted, does not leave the mouth easily. The Greeks begin dividing the spoils. This is where unity finally dies. Arguments break out immediately. Who gets the Persian gold? Who gets the armor? Who gets credit? Sparta claims leadership. Athens claims sacrifice. Smaller city-states demand recognition. Voices rise. Hands go to swords. On the same field where Greeks stood shoulder to shoulder hours ago, they nearly kill each other. Think about how fast that happens. This is the psychological whiplash of war. Common enemy gone. Old rivalries rush back in. And Pausanias, Sparta's savior, makes his first critical mistake. He begins acting like a Persian. He wears Persian robes. He dines lavishly. He accepts extravagant praise. The man who defeated empire begins to admire it. This is not rumor. Ancient sources record it clearly. Pausanias starts behaving like a king. And Sparta does not forgive kingship lightly. But before we get there, we need to talk about what Plataea actually accomplished. Persia does not just lose a battle. It loses momentum. It loses legitimacy. For the first time in decades, subject peoples realize something. The empire can be beaten. That realization spreads faster than armies ever could. Rebellions flare. Governors hesitate. Commanders become cautious. And Greece steps onto the world stage. But not as one nation. As competitors. Athens uses Plataea and the naval victory at Mycale to justify building an empire of its own, the Delian League. Sparta watches this happen, and grows uneasy. Because Sparta does not build walls. Sparta builds soldiers. And Athens is becoming rich. Power is shifting. This is the poisoned victory of Plataea. It saves Greece from Persia provides. But it creates a vacuum. And vacuums always fill with ambition. Now let's go back to Pausanias. Because his story is one of the most disturbing consequences of this battle. After Plataea, Pausanias commands Greek forces in continued operations against Persia. And this is where whispers begin. He communicates with Persians. He adopts their customs. He allegedly dreams of ruling Greece with Persian backing. Whether all of it is true doesn't matter. Sparta believes it. And Sparta does not hesitate when it smells treason. Pausanias is recalled. Stripped of command. Watched. Hunted. Eventually, he flees into a temple, seeking sanctuary. And Sparta does something chilling. They wall him in. They starve him to death inside sacred ground. The man who made Persia bleed, dies alone, weak, forgotten. No monument. No forgiveness. This is Sparta's message. Victory does not excuse ambition. And now let's talk about the Spartans themselves. Because Plataea is often presented as their crowning achievement. In reality, it is the beginning of the end. Sparta's myth grows too large. Other Greeks fear them, resent them, and fear always breeds opposition. Athens becomes the ideological counterweight. Democracy versus oligarchy. Navy versus land army. Wealth versus discipline. Within decades, Greece tears itself apart in the Peloponnesian War. A war so brutal, so exhausting, that it permanently weakens the Greek world. And Persia. Persia watches. Patient. Learning. The empire never forgets Plataea. It adapts. It stops sending massive armies into Greece. Instead, it funds Greek against Greek. Bribes. Gold. Influence. Persia learns a lesson the Greeks never do. Divide your enemies, and let them destroy themselves. And that is exactly what happens. By the time Macedonia rises under Philip and Alexander, Greece is exhausted. Sparta is a shadow. Athens is humbled. The world Plataea saved no longer exists. This is why Plataea matters. Not because it was heroic, but because it shows how victory can rot from the inside. And now, before we end, there's one final false ending. One last illusion to kill. You've probably been told that Plataea was Sparta's revenge for the 300. That it balanced the scales. That honor was restored. That Leonidas was avenged. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The Spartans did not fight at Plataea for Leonidas. They fought because if they lost, Sparta would cease to exist. This was not romantic. It was survival. The myth of noble revenge was built later, to make the slaughter easier to digest. And yet, even knowing all this, even knowing the brutality, the fear, the cost, Plataea still matters. Because for one moment in history, ordinary men stood against empire, and won. Not with destiny, not with prophecy, but with discipline, patience, and refusal to break. And in the final part, we close this story the way it deserves. With the emotional truth, the legacy, and why, now that you've heard the real story, you will never see Sparta, Persia, or heroic war the same way again. One last time. Say the word. You've been taught to remember Plataea as a victory, a clean ending, a final chapter, a moral full stop at the end of Persia's invasion. That version is comforting. It tells you that courage is rewarded, that sacrifice balances the scales, that history makes sense. But now, after everything you've heard, you know better. Because Plataea is not a full stop. It's a scar. And scars don't exist to make you feel good. They exist to remind you what almost killed you. So let's strip away the myth completely, one last time, and stand inside the truth. Imagine you are standing on the field days after the battle. The bodies are bloated now. The smell is unbearable. Flies swarm so thick they darken the air, crawling into mouths, eyes, wounds. Wolves and scavenger birds circle constantly, fighting over flesh. This is not heroic. This is what victory smells like. Greek soldiers move through the corpses, identifying their own friends, brothers, men they trained with since boyhood. They burn the dead. Not for honor, for sanitation. And here is something ancient historians barely mention. Many Spartans wept. Quietly. Ashamed. Not because they feared death, but because they had survived it. Spartan culture did not prepare men for living after slaughter. It prepared them to die in it. And that matters. Because the emotional aftermath of Plataea ripples outward for generations. Let's talk about Leonidas one final time. Because even though he died at Thermopylae, Plataea is where his shadow truly looms. Spartans tell themselves they fought for him. For the 300. For honor. But deep down, they are haunted by something worse. They are haunted by the possibility that Thermopylae might have been meaningless. Think about that. If Persia had won at Plataea, Leonidas becomes a tragic footnote. A brave man who died delaying the inevitable. Plataea saves his memory. Not because it avenges him, but because it justifies him. This is a crucial psychological distinction. Revenge is emotional. Justification is existential. Sparta needed Plataea to mean something. Because if it didn't, then the 300 died for nothing. And that possibility was unacceptable. Now let's look at Persia, because their story does not end in defeat. It transforms. The Persian soldiers who survived carry the memory of Plataea back east. They speak of bronze walls that walked forward. Of men who did not chase, did not flee, did not panic. Men who advanced silently while arrows bounced off their shields. This terrifies Persian commanders. Not because Greeks are invincible, but because they cannot be intimidated. An empire thrives on intimidation. Persia adapts. It stops trying to conquer Greece outright. Instead, it funds wars, bribes politicians, buys loyalty. Because Plataea taught Persia something crucial. Greece does not need to be conquered. It only needs to be left alone with itself. And Greece proves them right. Within a generation, Greek cities turn on each other with a ferocity that makes Persian invasion look restrained. The Peloponnesian War is longer, crueler, more destructive. And Sparta, the victor of Plataea, becomes something brittle, arrogant, suspicious, obsessed with control. They fear helots more than enemies. They fear change more than defeat. And when Macedon rises, Sparta is too rigid to adapt, too proud to bend. The same discipline that won Plataea ensures Sparta's irrelevance. This is the final irony. Plataea preserves Sparta's legend, but kills its future. Now pause. Because this is the part where I speak to you directly. You didn't come here just to hear about shields and spears. You came here because stories like this do something to us. They make us ask uncomfortable questions. About courage. About sacrifice. About what victory actually costs. And Plataea asks the hardest question of all. What happens after you win? History loves the moment of impact. The charge. The clash. The kill. But real consequences live in the silence afterward. Plataea proves that defeating an external enemy does not heal internal fractures. It only delays them. And that truth is timeless. Empires fall not when they lose battles, but when victory teaches them the wrong lessons. Now here's what almost no one tells you. The Spartans who fought at Plataea were not celebrated forever. They aged. They returned home. Some drank themselves into silence. Some became harsher instructors in the agoge, beating boys harder than before. Because trauma seeks expression. And Sparta expressed it through brutality. The myth of the perfect warrior society hides a deeper truth. Sparta was afraid. Afraid of weakness. Afraid of memory. Afraid of becoming irrelevant. And fear makes societies cruel. Now let's confront the final illusion. The idea that Plataea was inevitable. It wasn't. If Aristides had accepted Persian peace. If Pausanias had attacked too early. If the night withdrawal had collapsed completely. If Artabasos had committed instead of retreating. History shatters into a different shape. There is no destiny here. Only decisions made under exhaustion, fear, and uncertainty. That is the real story. And that is why 99% of people never hear it. Because it's easier to sell destiny than doubt. It's easier to sell heroes than humans. But now, you know better. You know that the Battle of Plataea was not a clean revenge tale. It was a desperate gamble by starving men. A psychological trap sprung on an overconfident empire. A victory that saved Greece, and planted the seeds of its self-destruction. You know that Sparta did not fight because it was noble, but because extinction was the alternative. You know that Persia did not fall because it was weak, but because it misread its enemy. And you know that war does not end when the enemy breaks. It ends when memory fades. And memory never fades evenly. So the next time you hear someone glorify the 300, or talk about Sparta like it was a superhuman ideal, remember Plataea. Remember the mud, the screaming, the starvation, the fear. Remember Pausanias, victor turned traitor, starved to death by his own people. Remember the Persians crushed not by fate, but by a formation they couldn't adapt to. Remember that revenge feels powerful, but consequences last longer. And now, here's the truth that gives this story its final weight. You are not meant to feel inspired by Plataea. You are meant to feel alert. Because the same forces are always at work. Arrogance. Fear. Disunity. Overconfidence. Empires still fall this way. Societies still fracture this way. And the line between survival and annihilation is still thinner than anyone wants to admit. You now know the real story. Not the myth. Not the movie version. Not the slogan. You know how Spartans made Persia bleed for killing the 300. And more importantly, you know what it cost them to do it. That knowledge puts you in a very small group. The people who don't just remember history, but understand it. And once you understand it, you can never unsee it. That's the legacy of Plataea. Not glory. Not revenge. Truth. And truth is always paid for in blood.